Metanomics is brought to you by Remedy Communications and Dusan Writers Metaverse.
Because I think Second Life is something that genuinely enables people to create value, whether monetary or not. I mean, as we're talking about a bit today, some of these virtual objects are, things that people are selling to make their living. I mean, others of them are purely expressions of art. The fact that those two things can kind of happen side by side in the virtual world is delightful. We still, as a company, make a relatively large amount of money if you look at it sort of on a per-person basis from the people who are using Second Life. People also spend a great deal of time in Second Life on average, a lot more than on, for example, a sucking site. I think that speaks to two things. One is simply that Second Life is a platform for people creating content, and the more complicated and interesting content you allow people to create, the more they tend to do it. I mean, the sort of upper end of how creative as humans we want to be is apparently not found yet. We seem to be almost infinitely creative in our desire to use these virtual systems of different types that offer any kind of user-created content to make content. So I think the fact that we allow people to create really the most complicated content I think that there is kind of in digital form is probably why they spend a lot of time there, and why we as a company are able to make some money from them, and on a sort of per person basis we do fine. The fact that we're big and profitable and able to keep growing as a company is testimony to that, given that there are still relatively few people using Second Life as compared to something like Facebook. The second thing I'd say is that from the very beginning, to your question about the specific revenue model, the fact that Linden today makes the majority of its money from recurring land fees, basically, on the real estate in Second Life, the model there, I think, will change over time, but it fundamentally was based on the assumption that if people were able to create anything they wanted in a virtual world, and they were allowed to buy it, sell it, own it, do whatever they wanted with it, I mean, in the same way that you do in the real world, that was my logical, that there would be some reasonable manner in which, as a company, we could collect some of that kind of total economic value that was transacted. Now, the best way to do that may actually evolve as time goes by and as the scale of this thing grows. As I've said many times, my belief is that it'll grow by 2 or 3 orders of magnitude in the coming years. I suspect that the business model will change as well. Today, as you say, we basically sort of sell hosting. We're providing, we're charging people by the acre for virtual real estate as a fee, a recurring monthly fee, and that basically makes us look like a web hosting service of some kind. But I think that though different parts of the different parts of the way the business works will evolve and change over time, I think it's always reasonable to say that we can, as a company, find a way to collect some small part of what goes on in the total economy. But that will probably change over time. As this whole thing grows, I would expect that the percentage of the total economy, if you will, that Linden Lab is basically accepting in revenues will go down. I hope. I mean, I think that we can survive as a company on an extremely small percentage of the total, GDP, if you will, of the virtual world.